Okay. So I'm going to call the Katuitt Fire District Prudential Committee meeting November 27th, 2023 to order. Going to do a roll call. Ray?
Present.
Seth?
Present.
Mark?
Present.
Charlie? Present. And Fran Parks present. We stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I need a motion to open the tax classification hearing for the village.
So moved. Second.
This needs to be a voice vote for opening the meeting. Mark?
Aye.
Seth?
Aye.
I say aye. Mr. Partridge?
Great, thank you very much. Nice to meet with you in person. I think I've done this twice now with you and over Zoom, so this is great to see you face to face. Very similar to what I presented in past years. Quick little PowerPoint setup here. The first page with data on it is what we call the LA4. And this is a form required by the Department of Revenue that I fill out for the town and every district. It shows the classification of property in the district. Anything that's in the left-hand column going down, anything that starts with a 1 is a residential property. 300 codes is commercial, 400 is industrial. And then we get into the 500 codes, which is personal property. So you have a significant amount of real estate, $2.5 billion worth of value. This is just Katuitt, it is not the entire town. The next page is assessed values.
Can I interrupt you for just a second?
Sure.
Can you, I just see what the 101 property type is, what's 102 and 103?
Sure. 102 is condominiums. 103 is a miscellaneous residential property, but the one probably next one you want to know is 104 is 2-family, 105 is 3-family. 111 to 125 would be apartments. 130 to 132 is land. That's all the residential sections. Commercial has a variety of codes in it, ranging from 300 to 393, which is all commercial. Same with the industrial, 400 to 442.
Thanks, great.
Sure. So the change in value for FY23, you were about 2.2 billion. We're now 2.5 roughly. We did have a 12.69% increase in residential values from FY23 to FY24. Commercial had a slight increase, industrial was 0, and then personal property had a significant jump, mostly because of infrastructure for utilities. So anytime there is new power lines or new gas lines or anything like that, that's a utility. And they are taxable on all that property. It's considered personal property. So we did have a fairly big jump there. Eversource, I saw an article that Eversource is investing $2 billion in the next 5 years in Massachusetts. So we're probably going to see some more of that too. It's just growing. So the increase in sales, increase in values was predicated on what the real estate market was doing or the sales in 2022. We do everything in arrears. So it gives us a chance to look at everything and be able to and analyze it and get as accurate values as we can. So the next page is how we calculate your tax rate. You have 3 million levy that you are wanting to raise by taxes. We do divide that by residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property. So the purpose of this meeting is to decide whether you're going to split the rate. The rate would be split between the residential and the commercial, industrial, and personal property. You are allowed under the classification law to charge different tax rates for those properties. You currently have a tax rate calculated by what is in Gateway, and talking with Ray, it works out to $1.22 per thousand of valuation for the district. Last year you were $1.30. Partial two reasons for the drop is the increase in values. That's just math, because we take what you want to raise with the levy, divide it by the value of the property times 1,000, and that gives you the rate. So that's just math. But the increase in values, when you increase the value, you're dividing a larger number into the levy and will drop the rate. And as long as what you have increased your levy by this year is less than what I have increased values by, the tax rate goes down. I do anticipate a change in the market coming sometime soon. We've already seen a little bit of a softening in 23 that we didn't see in 22. As long as that the market increases in what I measure in the market and value it more than what you go up, the rate will stay the same or go down. If we see a downturn in the market and values are reduced, your rate's going to go up. You're still raising the same amount of money. It's just how it gets dispersed. So a little more important for the town level, because there's other factors involved with that new growth, and you are limited on the town level to 2.5% growth over last year. So in other words, the amount you're going to raise by taxes can only increase by 2.5%, where you guys are unlimited. You can do whatever you want. You may get kicked out of office, but you can pretty much, you're not restricted by Proposition 2.5. It's basically what it comes down to. From what I figured, I think we're looking at a 6.1% reduction in the rate. So that's a good thing. The next page, option 1, is the split tax rate. This is determined by moving or shifting some of the burden of the taxes from the residential to the commercial. You can see we start out with a residential rate of $1.22, commercial rate of $1.22. You can shift 150% to the commercial, which would bring it to $1.83 per thousand. But as you can see, it would only reduce the residential to $1.21. And that's mostly because you're 97% residential. So you can shift the maximum of the commercial, and it's never going to produce a significant reduction on the residential side, because the split between residential and commercial is so favored on the residential side. The next slide shows the average single family tax bill at $1,239 at the $1.22 rate. If you shift the max to the commercial, it only drops $10.16. So you get a very small savings on the residential side, even at the maximum shift. And if you look at the next page, shows the commercial and what you would do to them. They would have their average tax bill at $838 would go to $1,218, or a $380 increase. So you're going to significantly impact the commercial properties for a very small reduction in the residential. You don't have a lot of commercial as it is, and it's not what I would call investment commercial. It's little small shops and stores. It's not you know, a big CVS store, a big plaza or the mall or something like that, that could take up a big part of that burden. You're gonna be burdening little shops and little stores that, you know, struggle to stay in business. So, it really doesn't work to it like it does, for instance, for Hyannis. Hyannis has such a large commercial tax base. It can absorb some of the impact and give a significant reduction in residential. The way your property makeup is, it just doesn't really work here. So the vote that you do need to take today is whether to split the rate or not. And the way you would do that is voting a residential factor. So if you want to keep a unified rate, which you have done historically for a long time, and totally understandable why you do, but you would vote to accept the residential factor of 1 to keep the unified rate. So any questions on any of it? I'm happy to answer anything.
Any public questions from the public? No, I'm not seeing that.
I did not see any.
I'll move
I-
to accept the resolution.
No, we have to, I need a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second,
Those in favor, voting,
aye.
Mark, aye.
Seth Burdick, aye.
Fran Parks, aye. Okay, so now, any discussion, setting the rate?
No.
No?
I don't think so.
Okay. Anybody like to make a motion?
I would like to move to accept a residential factor of 1.
Second,
All those in favor, Mark?
Mark Lynch, aye.
Fran Parks, aye.
Seth Burdick, aye.
Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. That's the best I've seen it done.
Everyone's present.
Well, great meeting and run very well, right according to the open meeting law and everything else. I'm very impressed. Yeah, very good. All right. Well, thank you very much. We'll see you next year.
Yeah.
If you need anything, you can obviously through Ray or come to my office or give me a call. Either way, I'd be glad to answer anything. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Great.
Thank
Good.
you.
Thanks very much.
Good
night.
evening. Thanks, Mike. Is there any general public comment?
I see nothing here.
Okay. So, did you get a chance to read the minutes for September 25th?
Yes.
I did.
Yes. Any questions or concerns?
No questions or concerns.
I'll accept a motion to approve the minutes of 9/25/23.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor?
aye.
Aye. Great. Ray, you're on.
Thank you. The position as of the end of October is very good. Target at the end of October is 33% of the budget. And we have already reported 37% in revenue. Primarily been driven by the taxes, being at 35%. In the water department, the rates are just behind schedule. There have been strong antenna and solar credits, which brings them up to 36%. Ambulance is running at 46%. And of course, we're having very strong returns on invested funds. That's added about $20,000 so far to the revenue. On the expenditure side, even though the summary shows 39%, if you take out the one-time annual payments for retirement and debt service, total about $700,000. If you back that out, we're traveling at about 26% of the budget, which means we're well below the target. So from both a revenue and an expenditure standpoint, very good performance through the end of October. Cash is strong, like that report I sent out originally, but still very strong position on cash. Remaining just about constant with where we were at the beginning of the year, and that's despite the $130,000 loss in our investments in the open trust fund. In terms of articles,
How do they do that?
the market down substantially from June. And our investments were down accordingly. $135,000 through the end of October.
And what are the instruments that we say the market is down? Or do we have stock investment? What are our,
We have approximately $2 million in terms of the cash balances.
page?
The top line, OPEB investments, $2,034,000.
The one, right,
It's actually the fourth grade.
thank you.
We began the year at $2,034,000. And those investments are managed by the Plymouth Pension Commission. And that is invested in a variety of stocks. We currently are in the middle range of aggressive to conservative. And the market, didn't calculate what the market is down as a percentage from June, but 135 over 234 would be representative of what the market did. So we are at the mercy.
Okay, just to be clear, this is not investments that that is the village have made. We have been funding our retirement funds to an organization that invests for us.
One of the approved, 2 or 3 approved organizations in the state that is allowed to accept money for post-retirement benefits. And it's a 6.6% drop. And if memory serves me, the S&P is down, I think, somewhere in the 6 to 7% range from June. So we follow the market
Okay, so this changes every single month. You're just
every
pointing it out as being a particularly significant one this month
from
from
June.
June. Okay, thanks, that's helpful.
The other thing I added in this report was a detail of the school articles. That's back on page. Please. I thought it'd be useful to illustrate the detail which was passed 2017, the space meeting, and then 2021, I believe, for the school property. The space needs has been unused up to this point. The fire department has begun to use it, and I believe they have a purchase order for your study.
Finance item. Everyone to Fire Commissioner, we are here tonight to discuss that exactly and the funding that we need for that particular proposal.
Pardon.
Thank you.
Then the next article that was passed was for the acquisition and maintenance. In the acquisition, we had 23,000, of which we spent 15,000 200, leaving 7,700 left in the acquisition portion of that article. That would be good practice to repurpose that from acquisition to operating at the next district meeting. We haven't started using the annual operating expense. We actually did, in a sense, by including the school property in our insurance portfolio, which at the time, after discussing it with our agents, made some sense to include it. At that time, we thought it was going to be required in the next 30 days. It was actually the next 60 days that was required. We'll give credit for that. But we will, going forward, be taking that money out of the article. You see, we have electricity. Obviously, the drain water and shut down the boiler. That's been done by the town. So we have an extra $4,000 in the operating area to use. The next article, which is the alternative development determination. And in that we have $207,000 split between determining the cost of modifying a project manager to execute that, and a special district plans are finalized. Two, I believe, a $28,000 pre-acquisition environmental study. And that was primarily related to the tank, in-ground tank. In-ground tank has been removed. There's no remediation needed from that. So that's $28,000 that can be repurposed again into either the operating or the alternative use. So in total, we have $307,000, $307,635 in total related to the school property and other space needs.
So,
Yeah.
when you say repurpose required, I'm assuming that means, an annual meeting and special meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Any questions?
Not for me.
No?
That's it.
Okay, thank you.
Another question, any chance you have a figure for what the insurance is, the additional insurance
I
premium?
don't have it yet. I've asked the agent twice and still haven't gotten it back over there.
Track that down and let us know.
Yeah.
I believe we paid 400 extra to add.
It was part of the whole deal.
Okay, so Commissioner Kevin, you're up.
Evening, everyone. Kevin Conley.
You have a seat.
Hi. Hi. Do a fine, Commissioner. Excuse me, turn my back to you.
You
Like
wanted
to
to
start?
go? Yeah, go ahead.
So I appreciate the time tonight. I sent over to the 3 members of the Prudential Committee this morning the proposal for the feasibility study and the conceptual design. Did you all have a chance to take a look at that?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions on that?
Not that
Particularly now.
Okay.
It's straightforward.
Yep, it is. And we'd like to move forward very quick, as quickly as possible. So we are here requesting the funding as was indicated in there, plus a little uplift that I'll tell you about now. Very little uplift, but the fact of the matter is we would like to move forward with that study so we can determine whether or not the 64 High Street and 56 location is going to be feasible and be able to be leveraged as a firehouse. Right, a lot of challenges with regards to that because we need to stay operational as we're building, if we use that lot. So the fact of the matter is, there's lots of variables we have to figure out now whether or not it's possible. The additional funding that I referenced is an amount of about $2,500. So if you look at the second to last page, there's additional reimbursable expense. Total cost that's listed for the proposal or the two separate studies, the two separate phases, is $27,250. We're expecting probably around $2,500 of possible reimbursable expenses. So we might as well put that out now. So we're looking for a total of $29,750. for the feasibility study conceptual design. And again, that will be a two-phase. If perhaps during phase one, we determine, which costs $5,750, determine that that is not a viable site, then we would stop at that point, and any funds would be obviously returned to the district.
What's the timeline on this, Kevin? How long do we think it will take them to produce results?
Did not give me that answer yet. Their question to me was, when are we going to start? So I think we'll have a better idea once we start. I know we will actually.
So these funds have already previously been allocated, correct?
They have
Yes.
the original space study, which is $42,000 still remaining.
So,
Which was this process part one, essentially, meaning that it's the same, it was the same purpose. And the same, it falls well within
Yes.
the.
Yeah.
And the space needs for the whole
Right.
district. The original article.
is there any action that we need, additional action that the Prudential Committee needs to take?
Well, I think we have to release the funds to them, but I have a question. I think it was at your last fire commissioners meeting that Commissioner Fasano asked that the school be evaluated. You recall that?
I do recall a lot of conversation regarding the school, but
Yeah. As a, as a possibility of being able to, rehabilitate that into a fire station. So if
At the end of stage one, is it gonna be? And is that where you're going with
well,
it?
yeah, no, if the end of stage one,
They said this
it's
won't-
decided you can't do it on, High Street. Can you, repurpose the rest of your, architectural needs, space needs to look at the school? Because basically what he said was that, this committee should, would be the ones to, get another architect to, tell us whether or not that building will be viable.
okay, so let me try to break that down a little bit. I think in reference to Commissioner Pisano's comment, I think his comment, I speak from here, but my recollection says that he was referencing it would probably be ill-advised to demolish the school or make any hard decision on the school until we at the fire department understand what our possible options are with regards to High Street.
Right, and after that, he added
Okay,
that, a study should be done of the school to see if that's a possible viable option. And that he thought this committee should do it. But I think that if, the determination is that that High Street is not a plausible, use, that you're gonna, already be with some architects. And, I would see if they could take a look at the school.
so I conceptually have no issue with that, providing within the guidelines of contracts in the Commonwealth of Mass allows us to do that. Sure, I don't see any logical reason why that wouldn't be an appropriate thing to do. Our first preference, as I've stated numerous times, is leverage the High Street location and then see where we have to go from there. This is not a question of if we need a new firehouse, we need a new firehouse.
Right, yeah.
It's just a question of where it's going to go.
Correct.
And does it seem likely that you would be able to operate, I mean, based on your preliminary conversations with these architects, how would you operate and remodel at the same time? Is that gonna be like what in stage one? Would that be one of the killers of that as an option? Would you say, so they go and in stage one, they do their initial assessment and it says, well, it doesn't look as if you can operate a functional fire department while you're doing this work.
That's something that we do need to understand straight up. I
Because
do
the
understand.
obvious thing would be then, oh, well, we have another spot where we build one while we still operate out of this one.
Absolutely.
And then go to that. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? I'm just thinking about how it is framed. Does it seem likely that would be the?
Absolutely. We'll sit down and we're going to look at all possible contingencies relative to that,
Right,
whether or not we'll be able to leverage that property. That's first and foremost. And we did have conversations with I don't want to say it was the architect, but the lead from the company saying we need to be operational. They understand that. There are challenges with that in any location. I think there'll be bigger challenges at this particular location because of the way things are, right? But that's our plan to go forward with that. We need to remain operational.
and as Fran said, if we have
if it all can fall under, so if you would only expend 5,000, whatever it was, dollars in phase one to find out that it's a
Right.
dead letter, that you would use the High Street and Nickerson Plumbing Building, then would it be feasible, and you probably don't know the answer to it, obviously, because we don't
I
know,
don't know
to
the answer to
then
it.
shift it immediately, have that study shift to the school building and then consume, and have it fall within the amount of money that we have set aside currently for the space needs study,
Yeah.
in order to not open any new
New
kick
studies.
it back to us to then use the other $207,000 or whatever that we've got allocated. Do you see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I
And it could
do.
all be carried under the auspice of your research into the new firehouse.
The first question I asked of Kevin, and I know he doesn't have an answer for us yet, is how long does this take?
Right?
Because if Catalyst is gonna tell us, yeah, we'll have an answer in 3 months. If the answer is no, this won't work at High Street, we could then turn,
Right,
if it's gonna be a year.
right, that's gonna be more complicated.
And you're telling us we can't do anything to move the ball forward for a year. It having been 3 years now since we started this project, that would be troubling from our perspective. So from my perspective, having reviewed this, I think we should go ahead and make it happen and make it happen as soon as we can. My question is, can we concurrently, and I'm not sure how we go about this, concurrently have someone looking, perhaps Catalyst, at the school to determine whether similarly that there's even a possibility.
With the bent toward fire use for public, well, fire service or whatever.
Because
Specifically?
we are hearing from the fire department that, well, maybe the school building itself could be
Right,
at least
I mean,
partially.
That's the question. Could the school building itself be?
I think it
Totally
should be
or
coupled
partially.
into, I mean, that would be my opinion, if it could be accomplished for the amount of money that is already set aside for the space needs study. That the most reasonable course of action would be to do both, but it obviously couldn't be, or it wouldn't be, if they do carry on and do a full assessment of the High Street location and Nickerson Plumbing Building. Then that is gonna consume that $40,000 roughly.
Yes, right.
It was gonna be 29,000, so you'd have $11,000 left over. Then it would be a similar amount of money to then conduct the same study at the school building. So then it'll end up coming back to us anyway,
Right, and then we'll have to do a request for proposal.
and we'll have to take it from there, which is something that's inevitable for us at this point anyway. But not for that particular project, in
Yeah.
that, you know what I'm saying, but we have a series of RFPs ahead of us regardless. Of
Yeah.
how we wanna look at that and for what purpose.
Yeah, well, we already have one that sets out certain things that we can do, at
Right.
207,000.
Right, that's money that's expendable today, or at the
Right.
point at which we issue these RFPs and figure out what tack we're gonna take on the whole.
But do we need another RFP to determine the answer to the question? Can the school, to satisfy the fire department, can the school potentially be used for a new firehouse?
I think we would have to have a separate, because the RFP that established the space needs study was, not the RFP, but the warrants that established it and the RFP that was issued, that'll all go away when that money's gone, right? When that space needs study money is gone, so we're
Yeah,
gonna have
right.
to, we might as well just start from. It almost makes more sense. You guys can use this money to do that. But
This money meeting
the original space needs study, what
Did you
remains in that warrant,
currently proposed $29,000 capital study.
and then we're just gonna have to see where it lands.
Yeah, what
I
they.
don't wanna wait a year
No,
No.
to get
and I don't think it's in anyone's best interest for
to
us to continue.
start the process of determining whether the school can be.
Well, we already have a new smashed window at the school.
I know.
In 3 days. or a week and
We
a
can all
half.
agree that it's not
This
getting
process.
better, whatever state is in now.
So just for clarification purposes, if I may, real quick, Fred, we sent this out specifically with an RFP of 56 High Street and 64 High Street. So if phase one shows that we're not able to use that property, my next call probably would be to legal counsel. and say, can I use this document to look at another location?
Right.
So until I know the answer to that, I frankly will not commit to where I will go with that, none. We have to go somewhere if they say no. And I do not think frankly it'll take a long, long time. I'm not gonna give you a time right now. They're eager to move forward. I haven't engaged in any conversations with them of any substance because they don't have the funding yet to move forward with that.
And it's, consultants, municipal consultants don't move as slow as municipal bodies themselves.
Yeah, right.
So I assume that they'll be interested in the profit motive being their motivator, that they will get done relatively quickly, I think it seems. I'm
I
fine
just hate the idea
doing it twice.
of
Right.
doing it twice and being essentially held to no action. Right, while this is going on. Again, you tell me 3 months, that sounds fine. You tell me a year. But
I don't think it's gonna be, I think 3 to 4 months is probably more realistic.
I must admit, to a certain degree, I'm confused by this conversation. There was funding put aside.
Yeah.
3-4 years ago to look at the overall needs of the Katuitt Fire District.
Right.
And there's 3 different areas there. There's the fire department, there's the water department, there's obviously the managing department, right? Right? So the fact of the matter is that money's been funded, it's been approved. I'm not sure personally why this board isn't moving forward with that. To try to determine
we
the
didn't say
overall.
that we're not, Kevin.
Okay.
That's what we were talking about.
Right.
And you heard me say that my thought is that we should move ahead with this promptly.
We'll need more than $11,000.
Yes.
Right.
By this, by the way, I mean the catalyst proposal that's on the table before us.
Right, but the catalyst proposal does not apply to the school.
I get it.
We're just thinking about how it all, and this is our deliberative discussion, Ari, the whole topic, you know what I mean? And not necessarily just about the catalyst thing, you know what I mean? That I'm just thinking about the whole, as we kick the can, as it goes down the road and we continue in this process. I'm fine with approving the money to do this. I would be interested to see how long it's gonna take and get it over with and
I-
be kept apprised of what the outcome is gonna be, especially at the close of phase 1.
Right. Providing funding is approved tonight, I will contact Catalyst tomorrow and do my best to get some numbers, or shoot me some timeline to you all by the end of the week, next couple of days.
Can you tell us the exact number again, Kevin?
$29,750. Do you have a comment you wanted to make, Ray?
Yes, 2 things. One, the original article for the office space said it was distributed under the control of the Prudential Committee. So I recommend that in the motion, you approve this to be handled by the fire department. The second thing is in the article that talked about the determination of use, the original space needs study was incorporated to include the school property. So it doesn't take any special action to expand the space needs to the school property.
Okay.
Good to know, thank you.
So I will accept a motion have
Have the funds distributed.
have the funds distributed for the fire department study of $29,750.
I move that the fire department be allowed to proceed with the catalyst proposal in the amount of $29,750.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you all very much. Appreciate your support.
Kevin, you'll let us know what they say.
As soon as I know, you will know, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right, the Katuitt School, we have pictures. So, hold on, yeah. That's the blinds that were inside the building and now on the, and you see the broken window and the air conditioners turned over. So, I've contacted David Kerr and, he will be there tomorrow.
David Kerr is.
a local contractor, and he does work here at Freedom Hall,
Okay.
or repair work here at the hall. And he board up the windows. There are actually two windows. There's that window, and then there's a window that when you look at the front of the building, left, it's a broken window that's been broken for some time that the town has known about because I've told them several times and never got repaired, and it's in the closet where the chairs are. So he's gonna board that one up also, you know, probably $300, maybe more. 300 to 500. I don't know what the cost of plywood is nowadays.
Everything else.
So,
Fred, if I may, you were referencing the windows at the school.
yeah,
There is one that's boarded that's open. Did you just reference that now? So in other words, it's boarded up.
Yeah.
And there's a space about 4 inches open to the world,
oh, great.
right? So
The plywood wasn't big enough, is that what you mean?
It seems like
I didn't put the plywood on.
Right.
The plywood wasn't big enough.
the town put it on.
Right, so the fact of the matter is, if you're doing something with regards to bringing a contractor in, you should probably have a look at that one as
There's
well.
a.
Okay,
That is on the, looking at the front of the building, far right-hand side, halfway down, I believe.
yeah.
Okay.
Now, do we need to, I think Ray raised a earlier point by email, do we need to have every month, an assessment as to whether we're going to authorize funds, or can we?
No, I think, you know, if you can, you know, vote, and I can authorize them. I think, you know, but I think we need to give consideration to having someone, you know, besides the village residents and people walking their dogs, you know, keeping an eye on that building for us.
Yeah,
Because, I'm not interested in checking on it every day. And I don't think it's the fire department's responsibility. So I think we should think about, you know, engaging someone to, you know, take a look at it.
Would that be a contract position or an individual or a part-time position you would establish of some kind? Ray raised his hand.
Every day the fire department goes to lunch. I don't think we could ask them to swing by the school and simply look at the outside, make sure that anything needs action.
Okay.
I would be happy to ask them. I think the chief would be willing. They go out every day.
What does the fire commissioner think of that? Since he's over there. Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't catch the original part, fire department.
there was a suggestion that, you know, we hire someone to do, I don't know if it needs to be daily, but some kind of regular assessment of the school, and there was a suggestion that the fire department could, on some kind of schedule, swing by and do an outside review, that they'll let us know another window is broken, another thing needs to be repaired. Obviously, you're not gonna be responsible for doing the work. but this
Sounds like a reasonable request. Let me do some checking and we'll get back to you.
That'd be great.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
So, Lisa has inquired about switching over the electricity to the fire district, and the alarm, which is the alarm is serviced by Cape Cod Alarm. And Cape Cod Alarm is paid up apparently till June 24th,
June 30th.
2024.
However, if the town of Barnstable asks for a refund, we would have to pay that up, but it's not an unreasonable fee. And the electricity, Eversource, I have had those accounts switched.
Oh, okay. So I thought,
Those were paid through November 14th, or those have been billed to the town of Barnstable through November 14th, which was their billing cycle. So the Tuit Fire District is now on tap from November 14th on. So we now own those accounts, and there are two accounts, 2 meters for the buildings.
2 years for the building.
One for the,
1 meter on the outbuilding and 1 meter for the main brick building.
the temporary, the music
Oh.
room there.
In 1970s, edition.
Oh, okay, yeah, right.
What was the last electric bill? Just out of curiosity. Did you see it?
I haven't
No.
because I've never received a bill yet.
It's all,
Yeah.
it was just the last one.
I'll let you know after
Yeah, if you see one.
December 14th.
Yeah.
So, I need a motion, to have, David Kerr, take care of the broken windows. Only 3 of them.
Gonna propose an alternative, which is we give you a certain amount of money to spend with David Kerr on the kind of maintenance that we're describing, which is safety and just keeping the envelope of the school, so to speak, intact. I would be happy to.
Go ahead.
Is there a particular amount of money?
2,000, 1,000?
I was gonna say 4.
Or what is the money, what article would that, or what warrant article would that come out of?
Maintenance.
Would it just reach out for our
Maintenance,
general
maintenance,
maintenance?
yeah.
40,000.
Right, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
I move that we grant, Fran Parks authority of $4,000 to contract, with individuals to maintain the integrity of the building, to be replenished if necessary, up
Up to the amount of $4,000.
to the amount of $4,000.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, Freedom Hall. Everything's busy here. The Christmas in Katuitt craft sale will be here Saturday. Birthday party in here in the hall. And someone else has rented the hall, so she can bring her children and their friends in to decorate gingerbread houses. And that's what's going on
Sounds like
here.
fun.
Okay. So before public comment, Jennifer from the water department called me. And the people who own the cell tower have are selling shares in the cell tower to another group, which means that their lease has to be adjusted for the sale. So this is just as the lessor, they need a signature from the Prudential committee. They need signatures on a couple other documents. Those documents are with the attorney that Mark Joe recommended, that originally worked with them to get the lease signed for the original cell tower that went in to replace having the cell transmitters on the the water tower. So
I don't know, this appeared in my inbox at 4 o'clock today.
yeah,
And
we can wait till the next meeting.
well,
Should it be posted?
except she says that it needs to be signed by December 20th,
Which falls after our.
which falls after our next
Yeah,
scheduled
we
meeting.
won't have a meeting after that, but does it not, was it properly posted? Do we have not? For it to just appear at the meeting and then be signed by us?
This is matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair.
Very good.
Certainly did not reasonably anticipate.
No, not-
I agree with their assessment that it needs to be signed by the Prudential committee, so why therefore we're not involved at all.
I would presume.
My guess is this is just fine, but it's a pretty complicated little 1-page document, that I personally would at least like to talk to this attorney and get confirmation as to what it is.
We don't have to sign it at a public meeting, do we? We could sign it at our leisure prior to the 20th.
Yeah, I think so.
Is the important thing that we review it. It doesn't require, and it's not a deliberative type of thing, is it?
No, it's just
Just an updating of the lease. But
just an updating because it's been partial ownership has been transferred.
No change in the antenna window.
No,
We mean the rental rate. Yeah.
And the whole thing, that would be my concern for the committee is that there's no change in our revenue stream
Well,
from the tower.
having not seen any of the exhibits, which is including a complete copy of the lease, we have no way of knowing whether the number is the same.
I'm fine with reviewing it further, as long as we sign it by the 20th.
Provide that
You're the
assurance.
lawyer, after all, so.
And then the attorney that's handling it provide that assurance.
yeah. I would think so.
Presumably, he or she can,
There are two, there's a total of 3 documents. This is one, there are 2 others that need to be, that's Boy Scouts, that need to be, signed by the water department, not by us. And those are the ones being reviewed. But I'm sure Jen can, give you the name of the attorney. And if we have to have a 10-minute meeting here in the middle of December,
I think that's probably what we need to do.
Okay.
I'll be happy to call them. Yes, that this is gonna be pretty straightforward, but without having spoken to them, I'm certainly not comfortable. I'll give them a call, and if we need to schedule a meeting, which I think we probably will.
yeah. I can just do a 10-minute meeting, just to authorize signing it. Okay, is there any public comment? No, you have to come up to the chair. State your name.
My name is Laura Willoughby.
Thank you.
I'm just curious of considerations of EMF emissions and how that affects people. I mean, there's been a lot of research done that there are some ill effects that can happen from cell phone towers, especially some of the new ones. I mean, it's something that's still being debated. I can't figure out, what's true and what's not. But I just wondered if that's something that's, considered by the Prudential Committee, and especially if they're changing the frequencies.
No, they're not, they're just changing the ownership.
Just the ownership.
That's it, just the ownership.
I'm wondering if it's also a time to sort of review what the commitment is, and whether, at some point you have the right to find out if you could pull it out, if there is more evidence showing that these things are not healthy for people. Like, I think right now it sounds like you don't even know what the contract is, so it might just be a good time to review it and find out what our options are as a community for having. If people start deciding that they don't want it there, are we locked into something? I'd like to know what options we have.
We are locked into a lease. Basically, as I understand it, again, having seen it for the first time at 4 o'clock, relate solely to a change in ownership, so
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that gives us an opportunity to back out of the lease.
Well, if they're asking to sign something, it might be a time when we could renegotiate and have, or they might also be at the same time extending a lease without you even knowing it, because that's what they do with their cell phones, is they pick a time and then you get locked into something that's longer when you could have, changed the terms to year or something like that.
This isn't, the cell phone tower is not owned by a cell phone company. That's an independent person.
Right,
So-
but it's emitting EMFs that affect people in some way.
Well,
Or possibly.
You know.
Possibly. I'm just saying, it sounds to me like a good time to review and see, make sure you're not getting tied into something that you don't need to get tied into. If your lease is up and they're really just trying to renew it or get it extended when you would maybe have the option of going year to year at this point, or, shortly. It's just something to, look into, I think.
I do see that the initial term of the lease is for 5 years, expiring on April 30th, 2028. So the term of the lease will automatically renew for 4 additional terms of 5 years each. So it is a 20-year, 25-year lease. But it could be presumably looked at before April 30, 2028.
Mhm. Well, just as long as you're not by mistake extending it when you don't mean to, and not having the options in case more evidence comes up and we decide as a community, we don't want it there for any reason.
Yeah, looks like
It'd be
we
nice,
can.
it would be
looks like
nice
we
to
can.
know that we're not getting trapped into something we don't need to get trapped into.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There is another public comment
Yes.
from Patty Daly to everyone. Will the committee resume the question of using appropriated funds to do an assessment of the school concurrent with the fire department study? Perhaps at the next meeting? Thank you.
I'm happy to discuss that, actually.
Me too. Always.
Part of me thinks that we should just wait for Kevin Conley to get back to us, as he promised he would,
Yeah.
with, how long it's gonna take Catalyst to do this. I suppose we can discuss it at our next meeting. If the good news is they'll be back to us promptly and, we can take the next step then, that's fine. If they can't say that they've been Catalyst, can't say when they'll have this, or we're not happy with the timeline, then I think we need to address it ourselves being the Prudential committee. Hopefully with the technical assistance from the fire department.
And now, as always, of course, is not this study only going to be very solely based it'll be exclusively based on the concept of the fire station. So we're not gonna cover, that will not give us any insight into demolition or any insight into possible renovation or however you wanna look at it. So though we would like to have them be they would be concurrent, but though we would like them to be single stream insofar as we're one organization doing one assessment for various purposes, we're going to have to do our own assessment outside of the fire service assessment that would have to take place. Don't you agree? I mean, even just to determine the cost of demolition.
Yeah, you have to do an RFP.
So, for instance, what I mean to say by that is that we should, I think, begin immediately with our end of it, meaning the next step for us. And it doesn't have to just be, demolition specifically, but we begin engaging and, an organization to begin our end of it. Because they're not gonna, the fire department is not gonna research the demolition. Well, maybe they would, I guess, if you look at it from a certain perspective. So if they're phase one, if Catalyst's phase one fails to identify or says that there are limitations beyond reason in the High Street and the two High Street properties, and that the obvious choice would be now to do something at the school, they may then, as a corollary to the process of determining what a station would be like there, they may study or outline the cost of demolition in order to erect a new structure. So maybe they'll dovetail somewhat, but do you see what I'm trying to say?
The question, Rick Pisano's question was, if the structure of the school is satisfactory for using it remodeled as a fire station.
Right. I understand. Sorry, I got a frog in my throat, but what I'm just trying to say is, I'm trying to see where there would be overlap of two processes, but I think that there need to be two parallel processes that can be concurrent but parallel.
So let me read to you from actually Article 16. 16 is very clear. We've got $45,000 to consummate the deal and to maintain the property. We're all set there. 17 is a little more convoluted. And let me just read it. To see if the district will vote to raise and appropriate and or transfer and appropriate a sum of $207,500 to one, reopen and fund the district space needs project to include consideration of the school property at 140 Old Oyster Road, comprising the school buildings and surrounding 5+5 acres in the study findings, semicolon 2. Define the costs of implementing the recommendations of the space needs study and any other specific use of the school property as determined by the Prudential Committee and or its delegates. 3, define the costs of demolishing the school building and returning the area to a green field. fund the cost of a special district meeting to determine the district course of action relating to the school property. So clearly, we could, if we wanted to, send out requests for proposals for how much does it cost to demolish this?
Right.
Or also presumably, we could send out requests for proposal as to,
Yeah,
is this
space needs.
building, well, it would not be a classic space needs. And the question is whether this language would include us getting requests for proposal to determine the structural feasibility of using the school building for a possible
Something.
firehouse.
So. So what do you think then? You're a lawyer.
I hate to say it because I'm, the one who's constantly trying to push this along, but I think we need to wait for word from Catalyst as to how long it's gonna take
Right,
to get an answer there.
You could ascertain the cost of demolition.
right, separate,
Right now, we're asking as a separate study.
right,
I've asked Mark Mueller if that Marston Mills architectural study was an RFP or a competitive bid. He hasn't come back to me yet, so I'll have to send him a reminder.
I'm pretty sure it was competitive bid,
So it was under 50,
under 50,000.
under 50,000. Over 50 would be, it
It was an RFP because it was over.
was over 50 for that.
Yeah, it was, I just know that the company that, finally got it their bid was $750,000.
no, but for
No.
the study that we
The
all saw,
document that went out to get that bid,
Oh, okay.
I think we could
I think
accomplish that.
I think it's competitive bid, but I haven't got the answer yet on that.
Because if
That's
they're gonna
something that
do
could be pursued.
that
We could
whole thing for
proceed.
$27,000, meaning whatever study, whatever that's gonna look, then I'm sure that we can get someone to say how much, how, and what it would look like to demolish the building for less than that, or at least the same amount as that, 29,000 or less.
And assuming that request, how much, basically doing a document such, similar to the one that's on our website as to the Marston Mill School.
Right.
How much does this cost? The only problem with that is we would need to be pretty specific about what we're asking for. Meaning we're gonna demolish it and all the parking lot, and all the roads, or we're going to save part of it, or.
That document, that's the request for proposal for demolition was written by the architects. So what we have to do is get the architects first.
Yeah, I agree with that. I'm just saying that, do we know what we're gonna tell the architects?
Well, we have to, first of all, we have to find somebody who's gonna write the proposal for us because we don't have a procurement officer. So I thought I would talk to our new town councillor,
Okay.
see if he
We
can,
can drum somebody up.
have you talked to the procurement
Not
department
yet, they're on
yet?
my list.
Oh, good, because I would like to know if they at least had a request for proposal for an architect, if they just had a template
Right,
that we could fill in.
Presumably, they have the one that they sent out. from
right,
Marston's
Marston's
Mill.
Mills.
So.
I
We
think we
should,
can-
Seth, if you can get your hands on that.
I
that would
will.
be
I'll
Helpful,
call him. Cause I'm gonna be over there tomorrow.
and to find out how much that document costs the town to put together.
Well, they have a procurement officer.
Yeah, oh, well, I'm just clarifying because I wasn't clear. By that document, I mean the documents currently on our website with the details of the Marston Mills demolition. Which is separate from the document
Yes,
from the town asking.
Solicited that, the
Solicited.
creation of that document.
You're gonna look for the one soliciting.
I will. I made a note. I took a picture of it. That's how I remember things. But I just think that, as you said, we should try to move forward. And maybe not recklessly. But I don't, in my opinion, it wouldn't be reckless for us to examine some of to at least have something concrete, at least for what, as we have stated in the past, which is what we believe is the prudent decision for this property, but not necessarily the eventual decision for the property. You know, depending on what develops in any other direction that may be generated through warrant or ballot, petition and so on.
Which brings up another topic. We have not really, for some time, talked about timing on any of this. We had, talked about a special meeting at some point. Are we still thinking about a special meeting? Or were we talking about our annual meeting?
That's, I think that's the problem, if we, we have a special meeting, what are we gonna ask the people to vote on?
Right. We have until now, what day did the concert meet, what was when did the transfer? When was that completed? That was November 14th or something like that. So the clock started, was it the 7th?
Email out that said Mark Woodrow has anything.
And they had filed the deed and it was
Yeah.
complete. So let's just say the 10th or whatever. So the clock, or the 7th, the clock started ticking on the 7th for the
Right.
money that we had appropriated for the maintenance of the school. So it would seem logical to me that by November the 7th of this coming year, that we would have made up our minds by then. I mean, but unless, there's always the possibility that what if something catastrophic happens and then it changes our whole budgetary outlook and our reckoning of how much it is going to cost us to keep this building, keep it a building.
Yeah,
The roof collapses because we have a freak blizzard this year, or there's a fire, the people who break the windows burn down half of it. I mean,
right.
all these things could, and we have insurance granted, but then what? Does that make any sense? We're gonna do what with that insurance money to repair the building? That's illogical. So-
I have a serious problem with that concept.
I mean, that's why, to me, I think that trying to get this at least settled sooner than later is more, because we have an obligation to either maintain it or eliminate it. But every day that passes, we have risks that are accumulating, and that could change our budget, our whole.
Seth, I agree with that.
Right.
And, I think it focuses people's attention too, to say, whether it be the annual meeting or special
Right.
district meeting, by now, we will, at that meeting, we will vote well, we already have the money to see how much it will cost to demolish, but it will be something along the lines of we vote to demolish, and we vote to kick the can down the road. The weird part is, it's only financial warrants that get voted on. So it has to do something with funding.
No, it doesn't have to be something with funding, it can be.
It can just be a
Right,
general.
Charlie? A warrant about, what to do with the building.
We could put a question in there and ask what the district would like.
Yeah.
It either demolished, refurbished.
Or have a very specific use.
Magically disappear.
Or, put the decision off for X period of time.
Yeah.
Based on, the consideration that here's the maintenance cost that we're gonna incur in doing that. Maybe it's not this meeting, but we should be thinking about what that timing is gonna be. That is for the next
Right.
meeting, because at some point, members of this audience, members, of the community want to, under the bylaws, bring their own motion forward. They should have plenty of time to be able to do that.
Right. And that is, I mean, do we have, this is still technically public comment that we're in right now, is it not?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So is there anybody here or in the audience online who would like to comment on what we're discussing now? Ari, George Boyd, come on down. I'm sorry, Fran, that's your job.
That's okay. Yeah,
Yeah, have a seat if you'd like.
So we can hear you too.
Yeah, the acoustics here are.
yeah,
Bizarre.
but you have to
Something
sit, you have to sit in a chair, please. As opposed to here. Thank you.
The owl.
Yes,
Yeah,
let's have to project. Yes.
Well, happy belated Thanksgiving, everybody. I just really had some requests for clarification. The study that the fire department is commissioning is going to be expanded now to the school for fire department uses only.
Not specifically. No.
Specifically.
No, from their end, there's nothing that says that. That was just us opining on. There'll be a first phase of that study, that's gonna determine the feasibility of the building at all, meaning where it is on High Street.
Right.
And then we'll know more once they get to that point, but it's not on the table at the moment for the school building. This specific study up to this point, what we approved the money for is relative only to High Street and those two
Okay.
adjoining properties.
But you'd have to wait for some determination as to the feasibility of High Street for the fire department before making any further studies or determinations about the school. Uses.
Not
no,
necessarily.
not necessarily.
So at this, you would have a concurrent study, or that's what you were talking about?
That's what I was trying to say, just because we don't, that would be, I don't speak for the fire commissioners, but I imagine if it becomes, it's totally, it can't be done on High Street, then it would seem logical that would be their next attempt, but who knows,
So that concurrent study then would be focused just for the fire department or?
no, that would be the fire, in my opinion, I don't speak for the whole committee, but that would be their responsibility. We wouldn't necessarily be involved in any study that would be for the creation of a new firehouse.
So
Right.
once,
Well, again, it would depend on the timing.
Right.
If Catalyst, who are the people who are doing the High Street study, we'll call it, say it'll be a year before we have an answer, then.
Right, we could be
this group
concurrent.
would come back and say, we need a concurrent study to see if the school building is a possible use.
this is the Kevin Connolly, study you were talking about?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're talking about
Mr.
the
Conley.
commissioner.
Right, okay. So if that turns out to have a year lag, then you would be considering a concurrent study to determine what the outcome.
Right.
So a year is just,
Yeah.
a number being thrown at. If it's gonna take
Yeah.
a significant amount of time, we might well consider a concurrent study.
And would that study be open to all different possible uses for the school?
Well, I mean, in my opinion, so what I've been trying to illustrate, at least, this is my opinion again, and I don't know that I speak for the council, for the committee here, but that we would, our assessment of the situation with the building and from a financial perspective and from a prudential, a responsibility perspective. But what we think is the best financial outcome for the village at this point is to demolish the building, but we don't make that decision ultimately. It will be decided in an appropriation, a warrant that will appear at either a special district meeting or a regular district meeting. And so what I was trying to say to people and have said at the last few meetings was that I think if the people who are involved or who are interested, and I'm sure there are several in the village in using this building for a purpose, some other purpose, approach it from that perspective, meaning that it is easy enough for you to present or to get a warrant onto the agenda at the special or annual district meeting that could supersede whatever we recommend or any warrant that we would craft. And so I guess that's what it's not to put it entirely, the onus entirely on.
Well, it doesn't
group, but-
supersede if they want to put, we don't have to.
Right, well, we don't have to, but whatever passes at the meeting is what passes at the meeting. So you can have a fully crafted idea and warrant idea that if it passes at the meeting, will pass, and then that's what we'll be doing that. You know what I mean? And just as if we have an opposing warrant that says we're gonna demolish this building because we think it's what's financially responsible, or that it's in the best interest of the taxpayers over the long haul in the village. Then of course, if that wins at the district meeting, then that's what would, do you see what I'm trying to say? So I think that rather than, I mean, I don't think that we're necessarily the right body to put on the meetings to determine that secondary or alternative use.
Yeah.
But I think that you guys can come up with something that would be, do you see what I'm trying to say? That it's akin to the initiative that was on at the annual district meeting last year with the Historical Society and their funding request, and that.
There's two issues here. One is what's going to be on the warrant, which can be brought up by any citizen with 50 signatures, et cetera.
Right.
And the other is the study. And my question was, how open-ended will that be? What Article 17 says is that these monies can be used for to determine any other specific use of the school property as determined by the Prudential Committee and or its delegates. So that implies you can examine the cost of demolition, you can examine the potential cost of refurbishing part of it for the fire department, assume, you know, how that works with the fire department. And you can also see it's possible to use part or all of the school for purposes that, you know, I personally and other groups have suggested using the school for as a community center. But so the question here is how open-ended will that study be, and who determines exactly the language that goes into that study?
So, lots of good questions. Who determines the language of warrants is if the Prudential Committee.
This is the study. This is
Talking about the study.
as opposed to the.
That would be the Prudential Committee. Would be the.
Yes.
And I mean, if we have the money, and if there is a concise or a relatively concise viewpoint that we can use to put on the study, I'm not against spending some of the money that we have and broadening the study to include those things. Personally, that's my opinion.
I just don't wanna spend money recreating the Habib report. That would be my only, I keep, harping on that, but it's the one kind of, it's not done by anyone who had a dog in the fight.
Right.
But the Habib report was for refurbishing it as a school.
Yeah, but
Use of the school.
Yeah,
That's-
but
It's a completely
it has,
different-
No, it's not a completely different.
It certainly is. The
No,
regulations are
I beg
different.
your pardon, it is not. I've read through as much asbestos stuff as I can find. Just for somebody to replace the heating in the building. There's no furnace in the building, it operates. They have to go down into the cellar where they'll be exposed to asbestos that's in the dirt.
But the requirements for asbestos for school use as opposed to different use are not the same.
one of
May
the-
I let me just finish? Because you can mitigate asbestos if it's not being used for a school, whereas for use as a school, it has to be entirely removed. And there again, it's a completely different animal. It's huge cost. So the Habib report is not entirely relevant in this circumstance. And going back to the study, I'm assuming that, I mean, we are going to be going back over old ground, trying to determine how structurally viable the school structure is now. So.
right, which I am not interested in doing, which is why I relied on the Habib report, which, may have, what you pointed out, with what we pointed out, is that it is to bring it back to school level standards, but I mean, if you take out kind of the school level standard stuff, it is still a gigantic multi-million-dollar number. We're fighting over whether it's 5 or 3.
Right.
Is talking about fighting, it's simply a question of.
And you cannot have volunteers do work on the building. It's a municipal
I
property.
wasn't talking about volunteers, I'm talking about. the
Some
study.
people have talked about volunteers doing work on the building.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to bring the matter back specifically to the study and the language of the study determining exactly what it will be for. And presumably it's going to be looking at demolition and looking at structural viability, not necessarily going over the Habib report entirely, but there's going to be some overlap, otherwise it's useless.
I think, I think that because the district voted to raise bar and appropriate these funds for this purpose, I don't have a problem spending it. If it goes well and truly beyond, this is again, my opinion, if it goes well and truly beyond the scope of what we have set aside for this purpose, it was appropriated, borrowed and appropriated for that purpose to study this particular topic. And if it will be very, I'm sure if we could recreate the Habib report. But I think that if there is a real feeling for this in the village, and if you believe that it will get past the voters at the district meeting, that it'd be important that you have an amount of square footage that you would, intend to use. And not necessarily exactly for what purpose, so that we could then narrow it to the point where we don't recreate the B report and learn that the 1970s edition on the back is riddled with mold and needs to be ripped off immediately. You know what I mean? Any number of different things that you could, or that the roof is gonna cut, the roof as it exists today will cost $1 million to replace, which is about what they said it would be. But do you see what I'm trying to say? That I feel that because this money was appropriated for this cause, that while I don't believe that I don't believe that necessarily the majority of the villagers would support a multi-million-dollar restoration of that building that's a taxpayer expense, certainly a taxpayer expense. I do believe if that money was appropriated for that purpose, that I'm not against spending it in that fashion for part, most, up to that level, that threshold, whatever.
This gets to my point about scheduling,
Right.
because at some point, we need to find out whether, the people who are interested in a community center kind of represents a large portion of village sentiment or a smaller portion. And I think the way you do that is you have a special meeting, and with the idea that you may not definitively answer all the questions, but if the community center proponents have enough votes to put a warrant on that says we should, spend this money to make this assessment, then, we know where we need to head. And if there is likewise a large group of people who say, look, we originally did this to protect our water supply with the idea that we would probably demolish it, and that's what we think we should do, then we would proceed in that fashion, as opposed to kind of, until we have a village-wide meeting, we don't really know what the sentiment, even the general direction of sentiment is, as to what to do with that school.
I agree with
think
that.
we need at least a third of the people in the village would want a community center.
It would come down to a vote. Nobody's not agreeing with that, but we're still talking about the study. The special meeting would be then after whatever study had been commissioned had been done to
Well, I
determine
think
the
Mark
actual
was
future.
proposing that we have a special meeting to determine the direction of the study.
Okay, all right.
You know what I mean?
I would also
I don't
suspect,
think we need to do that.
Is that what you're not saying? Is that what you're saying?
What I don't want to keep doing is, let's just keep looking at it. Let's keep looking.
Right.
at it. Let's keep looking at it. Before we find out whether there are, making up numbers, 10 people in town who think it should be a community center, or 300.
Right.
As opposed to there are 10 people who think we should knock it down, or 300.
Right.
That's what my concern is. We always talk about how, we want more participation, we want more. But at some point, we need to have the general sense of, all right, let's look into whether we can do this, either let them come up with funding by themselves or fund it with village proceeds.
Right.
But let's determine
so,
that sooner rather than later.
so you are talking about some kind of special meeting where this would be assessed.
I am, I don't
Right.
know.
Well, what in the bylaws or in our enabling legislation does it say about ballot elections?
No, you can't do that.
You can't do any kind of question that will be valid.
No, you can ask a question on a ballot, but you can't, it's,
Well, not, it wouldn't be an election, I guess, but you know what I mean, a ballot
it
question.
still has, the question has to
It
be.
wouldn't be
in a
legally
meeting.
binding.
No, it wouldn't be legally binding. Just be informational. I mean, we have sent out, 2 mailings to the district to talk about, to the residents in the village, to talk about, this project, and I don't hear a lot of people you know, one way or the other. But I'm not the least bit interested if somebody wants to make that a community center and the taxpayers of the village paying for it.
The group that I've.
Yeah,
been
I
talking
know, but
to-
it says
excuse
here-
me, Do you mind actually if I finish talking? The group that I've been talking to has been very open about this, that this is what we're trying to do, what this group is trying to do, is just keep options open. If the village wants to demolish, that's what the village wants to do. If they want to convert it or part of it for the fire department, that's great too. If they can, if maybe saving part of the gym, which is very popular, and another, et cetera, is possible with entirely donation-based group, not 1 cent charged to the village, then that's another option. And what is important here is to keep those options open and to be able to get the sense of the temperature of the village, of the residents, as to what their preference is, and nothing else. There's no axe really being ground here. It's simply wanting to make sure that we all make the right decision and not make any hasty decisions, and certainly keeping in mind Mark's point about timing. Yeah, it should be done fairly quickly. It's saving the building, because the building is going to just keep deteriorating if no decisions are taken from the fire department's point of view. They certainly want to know if part of this can be used either as rebuilt as a fire station or the offices and so forth. They would want to know that. So I think, making some kind of quick but open-ended decision as to what kind of study is going to be done is important. Just to analyze all of it without going over the Hadid report, but as I said, maybe studying the feasibility of keeping the gym or part of the building, or just in general, and thereby opening it up to the village for a decision shortly down the road after that as to what exactly the village wants to do. Again, nobody's trying to force anything down anybody's throat. It's certainly not the group of people I've been talking to. And again, it's entirely predicated on donations, on having a nonprofit corporation be in charge of whatever expenses there are. So, and if that's not feasible, if the village doesn't think it's feasible, then that is absolutely true. The village will see that and decide.
Sounds good to me.
Okay.
I mean, that's all we can do really, right?
Yeah.
Is see what develops next. So we don't want to set any timeline at this point. We'll wait and
Yeah.
see what happens. with
I
Catalyst.
agree with that. Let's wait and see what happens with Catalyst and.
Thank you.
Thanks, George.
Yes. Right.
Ellen Barnaby, Katuah.
I just had a question about money. We know approximately the cost of demo and reseeding, which I assume is going to be a little bit more than in the Habib report. But if the fire department doesn't want the property and there's interest among the villagers to rehab part of the building, and the vote goes before the villagers, we know the amount to the taxpayer for the demo, but we're not going to know the amount for rehabbing the building on the day that there's a vote, correct?
Well, the Habib report has been updated to the various costs of doing things. And they added the roof, which I asked for. So it needs a new roof. If things like the front doors aren't handicap accessible, they have to be ripped out and redone. And that's $50,000 to $70,000 right there, just on the doors. There is no handicap bathrooms.
But the short answer to your question is, will we know the number? Not exactly.
Okay.
In the same way, we won't know a demolition number exactly, but we will have.
We have a ballpark for the demo, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
We don't have any ballpark for rehab and reuse, and,
We do. We do.
we do.
Yes.
Okay, and that was the Habib report.
Habib report. which
Okay.
is with
But see, this is why, but that, I understand the point you're making there, because that's why, what I'm saying is that I think it should be that for a specific, if there can be determined a very specific concept behind it, then we can, for not a lot of money, relatively speaking, and money that has already been raised by our appropriated, we can find out and have a finite number. If
So-
we do this, if the study occurs prior to when we're gonna vote on the obvious outcome. Do you see what I'm saying? Like you had said, well, we should have a meeting. How would we have a meeting ahead of time, like a special meeting where we would determine the scope of the study? So if we have a meeting that determines the scope of the study, and then we can, if those options are, that's the direction that we choose to go in addition to
You mean
demolition.
if at the special meeting, we by vote figure out
What
what
the
it is
scope of the
people-
study would be. And especially, in order to have that be.
I don't think we need to know the difference between 3.9 and 3.98 is the number.
But I think what Alan's
We do
trying to
need
say
is,
is if it were not exactly that structure being brought up to code, the whole entire structure, then you could, yes, you could then by degrees say, well, it would be if we tear half of it off, then we're gonna have half as much would be the amount that we're going to, do you see what I'm trying to say?
yeah, but you know, kind of that way lies madness. It's like,
Right.
how much is it if you do half of it? How much
Right.
if you do 2/3 of it? How much if you just do the gym? How much? You know,
Of course,
the Habib report with, we pointed out it has some infirmities, but it's pretty specific. If you go in and look at it, it is kind of a, you know, cracked, you know, fixture repair by cracked fixture repair. It's really detailed.
So also, I think the villagers, if it is decided that they do want to rehab the building, that we be told with specificity what it's going to be used for. Because I've heard some of the ideas, they want to put up, they want to have a yoga studio. They want to have classes for kids. They want to have listed a number of items that are already available within a 5-minute drive of Katuitt. And I, as a taxpayer, retired on limited income, do not want to pay one dime more for somebody to use the facility in a limited way when they can drive 10 minutes to Mashpee or Hyannis. So my opinion, whatever the villagers vote for, it has to benefit the maximum amount of villagers for the cheapest amount of money.
right, and that is what sentiment of this committee has been and continues to be. But in an effort to entertain the representation of different viewpoints within the village. That's where we're at right now.
And I'm out and about frequently, walking the trails and in Katuitt, and the villagers know very little about what's going on.
Right, which is something also that never ceases to
Yeah, I know.
surprise me,
Yeah,
considering it's been
yeah.
36 regularly scheduled open posted meetings, plus to have 4 or 5 district meetings.
Yeah.
Where this has been a topic of, and then 2 or 3 very large public meetings.
Yeah.
Where we've discussed.
Where we
this.
got, by our standards, very good participation.
Yes, again, comparatively
Like
speaking.
85, 90 people, which was terrific.
Yeah.
But, you know, in a village of 3,000 in the wintertime, that's still a very small percentage. So
But you know, you can only,
we worry about that too.
It's true, and we're trying, and we're doing, I think, well, more people are showing up, generally speaking, than have done for years. In my 5 or however many years I've been doing.
When you send every single person in the village a postcard.
Twice.
Saying we're gonna be talking about
I know.
this, please participate. You know, after that, when people don't know what's happening, now I'm pulling my hair out, but I don't know what else.
But it's
to
just
do.
the way it goes, and that's why it's important, and that's why at least for my part of it, I feel that it's really important that everybody at least feel that they're heard about these topics, because once this is done, it's done. Agreed. And there's no going back, and, you know, the fire district in the past had all kinds of different situations where it's been accused of, you know, not airing things properly, not being transparent, and whatever, not because there was necessarily anything like that going on. It was just that because of that, that's just how it ends up being, because this is not a well attended or participated in pastime for many of the people in the village, and I don't blame them half the time for it.
You know, this is almost past my bedtime.
Right?
so.
But thank you.
There are other public comments?
Not here.
Okay,
Right, Laura Opie, 51 Mashpee Road. So did you guys get my email about the asbestos
Yes,
report?
yes.
And I just wondered, because at the end of the last meeting, it was stated that the asbestos would have to be removed regardless. And my research was that in this email that I sent, and I'd like to request that this email that I sent you be put on available to anyone who wants to read it, because I did put a lot of time and energy into researching it. The EPA advice to homeowners is that asbestos containing materials that aren't damaged or disturbed are not likely to pose a health risk. Usually the best thing is to leave asbestos containing material alone if it is in good condition. For slightly damaged asbestos containing material, sometimes the best way is to deal with it is to limit access to the area and not to touch or disturb it. And so that's what the EPA recommends for homeowners. The DEP guides for asbestos are, it restricts for new buildings, but no exposure standards have been established for non-industrial settings, and no regulations mandate which corrective actions need to be taken in buildings where asbestos containing materials are found. It's basically, it goes on to decision whether or not to take action, and the selection among the alternative courses of action are the responsibility of the individual building. So, following that, I think there needs to be a better understanding of what asbestos is there and what would have to happen to it, especially because if there is demolition on the other hand, it is not up to the individuals to decide if there's any asbestos, not just the 0.1% that requires attention in schools, but any amount of asbestos, it to be demolished. It must be wetted and sealed in leak-tight, properly labeled containers, i.e. sealed drums, in placing asbestos in plastic bags, which is then placed in another plastic bag. Contaminated clothing and equipment must also be handled this way. Each bag or container must be individually labeled with all information required by regulation. So if we do the demolition, we have to follow these very high standards. And I don't know was there asbestos in the building? Did they follow these in Marston's building?
Yeah.
Did they follow these standards?
Yes.
So I also found out that at this time, there's no place in Massachusetts to dispose of it. So you would have to then truck it somewhere else, and it could be to a very long way. So even if we got a contract for demolishing, we'd have to be aware that if there's no place to take it, the price might go up. I mean, it's a tricky business to demolish a building. I think the good news about that is that it really encourages us to think of ways of keeping the building and dealing with it where it is. I would say that this once a month meeting or occasional meetings is not the most efficient way to look at the issue and compare different ideas and different feelings. I mean, I'm just trying to find out, what's available. I would suggest that if you put together a commission of people who could study it and then bring it to you, like getting different perspectives, bring people together like myself. And I said I'd be happy to volunteer for a committee. I'm sure there are others who would, and work with you in between meetings so that we can make some recommendations and pursue some of your questions, some of our questions. And I'm wondering, how does that happen? Instead of just having three people whom we keep coming to and bits and pieces, try to assemble ourselves together. I think we're much stronger if we can work together, all together on this, instead of, working in pieces and trying to, well, you said this, I found this. Well, instead of having to then address it at another meeting, we can come together and find answers at once. So I'm wondering about a commission.
So, as I just said, was telling George, or as I was saying, the position of this committee is that the most prudent avenue forward is the demolition of the building and the return to green space and for the protection of the watershed. And that what you're referring to, the committee, the most appropriate place for that is, I think, with the group that George represents, and that they are working towards that. And that,
Right.
is that's my opinion, because I don't know if I speak for the whole committee, but that
You do.
it's
So-
more for, to appear on at a district meeting in a form of a warrant brought by petition for that purpose, when we get to that point, but that the percolation of the actual concept gets handled through this nonprofit organization that George represents along with others.
So how do we, as, you know, not the Prudential Committee, get access to the building, get access to
No,
funding?
you can't,
So,
nobody can go
So-
inside the building
so-
as it stands now.
okay, so I think,
Okay, I'm not sure that that's correct.
Well,
You know, I think it's a terrible idea, but if we could probably make that happen.
In a controlled,
Discussion,
limited
the last time I spoke to Chief Brown about this, he thought that was possible in small groups. But. it might
I
be
don't think there's really a lot to be garnered from being inside that building, to be perfectly honest.
And we
having
are-
been
and
through
we
there a
already
number of
did that.
times.
we already had our open houses at that
We
building
did.
for people to go into it and look at it.
And when we held the
you know,
district meeting there, that was an interesting one.
Yeah.
but if you wanted to assemble an alternative plan to the Habib report, which is, you know, everything that has to happen all at once. If you want to assemble a different alternative, you'd have to look at it point by point, you'd have to consider it. And it's not something that you can do in your imagination, you have to do it looking at the building.
At the
I
point
just
at
want
which,
to point out that the Habib report, in fact, does not say you need to do everything all at once. It's divided into 3 timelines.
Yeah.
Stuff that needs to be done urgently, stuff that needs to be done in 2 to 5 years, et cetera. So, as I say, its main attribute is that it was done by people who were very knowledgeable, who didn't have an axe to grind.
Mhm.
I'm beating a dead horse in this one.
So the other thing that you had just stated was that you can't have volunteers work on a building that's
No.
municipal building.
No,
Where is that written? What law is that written? Like, where is that written? And is there not some way, like, if a nonprofit were to be in charge of the building, rent the building, develop the building, why could they not contract with someone or get volunteers to come in? If it's a nonprofit, quite often, I'm not saying volunteers like people who don't know what they're doing. I'm talking about people who do this for a living and are willing to come and do it for this building. And this happens, Habitat for Humanity is, you know, an example where they bring in people to
Right,
help
but
with
that's
this.
all-
no municipal aspect
yeah,
to
right,
Habitat for Humanity.
no,
But if you have a building that if basically you sign off on it and another organization takes the responsibility for it,
I don't
I
think we
just-
could lease a building that was in a state of extreme disrepair
no.
for any purpose, so it would still
But
be our
this is-
responsibility.
At the end of the day, whether there's a nonprofit in there that's taking responsibility, at the end of the day, if something happens, somebody gets hurt, somebody claims that they've gotten asbestos exposure, anybody who's gonna sue is gonna sue us. Gonna sue the Katuitt Fire District, because we're the deep pockets. You're not gonna sue the people that are renting the building. And, and that's just a fact. And,
Mhm.
you know, I just don't think that it's realistic to think that there are volunteers who are gonna do a 21,000 square foot roof.
but do we know that the whole roof needs to be done or that I mean, most roofs can be repaired rather than replaced to a certain extent.
I can't even find a date for that build. There is no record of that roof being replaced. I'm sure it's been replaced, but, there's no record in the assessor's office that says the windows were replaced and some other work was done, but no record of the roof being, so that's possibly, it could be the original roof. And under where it's leaking, there's sheathing that's gonna need to be replaced. And I'm pretty sure that building, if it's as old as that, doesn't have the weather what's that called?
Barrier and road.
Yeah, weather barrier
Something.
that goes on the roofs now. You know, so I don't, I just,
But I think the best place for this conversation is with George and with the group that could do it.
But if we're sort of denied access for example, so this is a municipal problem and there are organizations that might fund how to solve this municipal problem, but then we need the backing of the Prudential Committee to come and take it to them.
But the
If we
Prudential
can
Committee's
work
position
together.
up to this point is that we should demolish the building and
Right.
return it to green space.
But-
So that's what I'm trying to.
So what I'm trying to say is, if you would work with us, we might be able to find funding or, I mean, there are people,
do you understand how much funding that you're gonna need?
I do, and there are
Millions of
organizations, there are
dollars.
organizations who are looking for ways, if you wanted to make it into a project of how to make it as green as possible, how to have, for example, you said the fire department might want to move in there. I can't see that could be good for the groundwater. So there's the question then, well, what can you move in there? What kind of alternative septic can you have? All of these questions, there are organizations who are funding these types of projects, and a municipal project would be interesting to these large foundations with even deeper pockets that, we might be able to do, but we can't do that unless we have the backing. If we go and say we're a nonprofit, we don't have nearly for grant writing. Have you done grant writing? If you've done grant writing, the more cooperation you have behind the project, the more likely you are to get the grant. So you're, basically undermining the idea by not supporting us in
Well,
going and looking for grants and
And
looking
who's
for
up for
alternatives.
reelection next, Mark? There's, you can run
I'm
against Mark.
raising my hand. Thanks. Be happy to get rid of
I'm
it.
not, it's,
No, but that's
not-
what,
I was just saying,
that's what we're just,
if we would.
not to belabor the point, but that's what our position is at
that's-
this point.
If I can just add one thing, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I
I was-
was just repeating
I was
what I
just gonna
said.
say, if this is something that takes years, which, right here, it says eventual rental of property. That says years to me. And, we're gonna have a very big expense with the fire department.
Impossible water filtration at treatment at point,
Yeah,
at some point. Not.
It's gonna be, inflicted on the taxpayers.
I just wanted to make one brief point. At the website for the Katuitt Community Center, there's something indicating that I said that a nonprofit would be the correct entity to undertake this kind of project. I actually was quoting Mark Boudreau there, who said that may be the right
Mhm.
entity to do it. So I just want to make sure everyone understands. I don't know the answer to that. Could well be, but I'm not representing that. That may or may not be.
Can I make a motion to suspend public comment and adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Can I make one more? Can I just ask if you would please consider backing some grant writing for something other than demolition so that we have a better chance of getting grants for a larger study of how to create open space without creating, a cesspool or without demolishing a building.
That once again, that's a decision that the villagers have to make.
But
That's not the commission.
but you've made a decision to demolish.
No,
We
we've
have-
made a decision to recommend demolish it.
So I'm asking if you'll step back from that and make a decision to consider putting your name behind grants to try to find other creative out of the box thinking that will help create something different there.
I don't,
I don't think I would support that.
Or that.
Not even just for writing a grant, to try to find other ways of handling the property.
no.
So I have a second for my motion to adjourn.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everyone.